So just so everybody knows what we're going to do is we're going to do the setup for the full teaching of Isaiah 28, which we'll do next week. But this is just the setup for right now. But then we're going to answer a question real quickly on zebra from somebody named Zebra on the YouTube comments. It says, Paleo, how did you get an O out of the hey at the end? Because Eric was saying paleo. It's not even on the notes on the screen, so I'll let you hammer that question.
So the thing about the syntax or the structure of the Hebrew language, you might say it reduces down to a symbol of the menorah. The menorah basically is a symbol with a straight vertical and 3 branches on this side and 3 branches on that side, which is repeated in just the word hey, vav, hey. So you've got the hey like the center, like the man standing there with his arms up. And then you've got the letter hey, like, you know, with 3. Of course, if we write it with the hey opposite, a little bit more graphically balanced, but it's a hey here and a hey there. It's kind of like you've got the essence in the middle with a prefix and a suffix. Okay, you've got past, present, future. Ehye asher ehye, I am that I am. That's present tense. If you say, I will be what I will be, now that's future tense. That's no longer present. So that's kind of a bad translation. It ehye asher ehye is almost, it's kind of like the essence of the present existing. So I'm taking those concepts and saying, like the phantom ideal chair concept, what's the real meaning? The real meaning is present existence. The word hey vav hey or yod hey yod, any combination of the letters of yods, heys, vavs, and sometimes you can add alephs and tavs, simply the verb to exist, to have the essence of being. Yehi or, let there be light. It's also translated, and there was light. That's past tense. Yehi or, exist, light, and exist light. What happened was the existence of light. So that verse in Genesis 1, Yehi or vayehi or. Yehi or haya, or in this case hava or hua, is existing. Okay, so to look at the word, any word spelled in Hebrew, like to hear on, this is what was on the headband of the high priest, and it was also on the bells of the horses, or like I say, you know, cabs of the cars. We made bumper stickers out of them and all. What's the difference between kuf dalet shin and then the word kuf dalet vav shin? Kadosh or kadash or kiddush. The essence of the word is the 3 consonantal letters, and you could say yods and vavs. What I found in analyzing the words and looking at the derivatives, reading the dictionary and various other things, translations in the Stone Tanakh, is that yods and vavs can act like my phrase wild cards. Like if you're playing with a deck of cards, they're like wild cards. You know, when you're kids, you're playing poker and you say, I remember this one phrase, okay, we're going to, you know, you're looking for 2 of a kind, 4 of a kind, full house, straight flush, whatever. And what are the wild cards? 2s, 3s, 9s, 1-eyed jacks, and kings with the axe. You know, wow, that's a lot of wild cards. You're just trying to play the game. It doesn't matter. You're just trying to exercise your mind for how to make number combinations. You're a little kid, you're learning, you're training your brain to think. So if you have a dozen wild cards, it's just to make the game easier so you can think. All the wild cards, 2s, 3s, 9s, 1-eyed jacks, kings with the axe. Well, what are the wild cards? Yods and vavs, stick them in anywhere and they don't change the structure, the essence. Look in the dictionary, you'll find that. Sometimes you'll see this one word and it'll say, see also that, Ernest Klein's Etymological Dictionary. So you could stick a yod or a vav between the kuf and the dalet, or between the dalet and the shin, and it doesn't necessarily change it. Changes a little bit, change sometimes the essence. In English, I am running. I have ran. I did run. I done rin. I ran, running. It's all just zipping real fast, which is RN, which is resh noon, which is a babbling book, where we get the word rondo. or Ronan, Resh Nun Nun. You take the second letter and you duplicate it, making the third, or you take the second letter and the third and stick another yod or vav in between, then add other suffixes and put other prefixes on. It's all just messing with the structure. It doesn't change anything. Once you realize or see by using the dictionary and looking at the translations, so here Stone's Tanakh is written in modern Hebrew. Just use it. Write it down. I read it in modern Hebrew. I copy it and I write it in paleo. That's all I'm doing, and no mystery. And online, you can look at the paleo, erictology.net. You know, I've got the whole paleo, the whole Bible written in paleo, including the New Testament. It's like, is that accurate New Testament? I don't know. Got to put where the source was, but it's a back translation, probably out of Greek or English or Latin or something, and somebody in the 1800s wrote it in Hebrew, and then we transcribed it from the Hebrew to the paleo. And it's like, don't believe it if you don't want, but learn the 22 letters. That's the essence. So kind of like with the menorah, you've got the center, which is like the main support. Then you've got the prefixes and the suffixes. You've got the past and the future. You've got English and Greek, but this is the Hebrew. Just a picture. Just a symbology. So if you look at palea, if you look in the dictionary, you'll see Pei Lamed Aleph, Pei Lamed Hey, and Pei Lamed Yod all mean the same thing. You could put a nun in front of it. Nun Pei Lamed Aleph Vav Tav. That's the plural. Nephalot, and that's the word used in Psalms 119, verse 18. David said, "Open my eyes that I may see the Nephalot, hidden wonders that's in your Torah." Nephalot. Nephal, hey, that's like Nephilim. Those are giants. Those are bad guys, aren't they? Same word, different suffix. The masculine suffix versus a feminine suffix is Nephilim versus Nephalot. Nephal, same word. Large, giant, fallen. Nephal is where we get in English to fall. Same consideration. What do you do with that? You ponder that. You navigate that. The word hey, gimel, hey, to navigate. It's also rudder, helm, steering wheel, ponder, spelling words phonetically. It's all the same word. So to ponder the spelling of words like navigating a ship by the stars, with the winds, with the tides, the currents, the stuff you see, the flotsam and jetsam that kind of pass by you. It's all navigating. That's why the word Navy comes from navigation, which I've talked to people from the Navy that were in the Navy and they didn't know why it was called Navy. It comes from navigate, which is the Hebrew word Hagah, hey gimel hey. And the gimel, you know, the head and neck of the camel, the letter with the foot, the verb, the moving letter. Hey, from here to there and back again. And you know, it's how you drive, it's how you steer, navigation. So to look at the word Pele Ha or Paleo or Paleot or Nephalot or any other way to spell it is just trying to look at it and recognizing, hey, look it, there's a Pei Lamed right in the middle. There might be an Aleph, there might be a Hey or a Vav, masculine suffix, Vav, feminine suffix, Hey. They're just suffixes. So then you have to determine, yeah, what's it matter? Good question. What does it matter? And I've spent years trying to figure out what's it matter. In fact, when I first started looking at stuff, I'd see a word written in Hebrew and it'd have a Strong's number. And I'd look up in Strong's and there'd be like 6 or 8 different letters and only 2 or 3 of them matched. And it's like, what the heck is going on here? How can Strong's Concordance say this is the word and and this is what it means, and it's completely different spelling of the word than what's in the text? Only 2 or 3 of the letters match. And in Strong's, it's got this whole other thing. And I thought these guys were doing crazy mojo with the it's like, and it took me a few years before I realized, oh, I get it. And then you really want to kick in the head. You read Stone's Tanakh, the book of Song of Solomon. And it says, this is not a translation. This is an allegorical rendering as per the typical style of Rashi. What does that even mean? Well, you read the narrative in English in Stone's Tanakh, Song of Solomon, and it reads like a paraphrase, like the Living Bible. Okay, it's a paraphrase. But then he says, you brought me to your encampment of Torah delights. You brought me to your encampment of Torah delights. I think it was like in clustered, I'd have to go back and look, clustered my encampments with love or something like that. Is that, wait a minute, I thought it says you brought me to your banqueting table and your banner over me is love. Well, that's what's written in King James English, banquet table, your banner over me is love, and yet you read this and it's completely different. It's like, what are these guys doing? Where do you get this translation? It looked like just made up. You couldn't find any rational connection. And then I started analyzing the structure of the Hebrew language. And I knew that there was something going on. I didn't know what it was, and I just knew it. And after a number of years, I felt like I was on the edge of some kind of breakthrough. And I said, I don't even know what there is a breakthrough about, but I feel like there's something about this Hebrew that I just can't grab, but I can feel it there. And all of a sudden, that's it. I felt this breakthrough of understanding, and I realized then when I look back at Song of Solomon, it's like, that's exactly why they came up with that rendering. That's what Rashi was doing. So if you read in English, banqueting table, it's not about food. It's about comprehending the Torah, which is manna, which is the provisions of what's this? Where'd this come from? Yahweh's instruction that his Ruach will feed you, which satisfies the inner being, not just the mouth, the palate, the stomach. That's what the Book of Solomon was about. But if yet you read the book of the Song of Solomon, it looks like it's some carnal, fleshly love story. Well, maybe it's that too. Maybe it's all of the above. But it's how you choose to read it, how you have the eyes to see it. How do you see the ideal phantom and invisible chair that doesn't really exist, but yet you have to have that idea, the ideal chair in your mind when you're looking at any chair? You want to go buy a chair. I'm blending a metaphor with the last discussion. So that's what the professional translators do. That's why there are 100 different English translations, and each one of them can say theirs is just as valid, if not more so, than the next. The only one that's valid is the one written letter by letter in Hebrew.
So hey sounds like an O-Y?
Huh?
So hey sounds like an O-Y?
No. O-Y is a Vav Yod.
No, I'm saying why does hey in the word paleo sound like an O when you say
it? Doesn't sound like an O. What I'm saying is that I'm recognizing the word spelled a number of different ways as being essentially the exact same word as paleo. It's the same word. So for example, here in Isaiah 25 verse 1, it says Pei Lamed Aleph. Well, it doesn't say EO, it says, in fact, Aleph is silent, so it says Pele, or Fele. Ayin Shin Yod Tav, Pei Lamed Aleph would be Oshit Fele. I've heard it said Osei Fele, as if, and then that's translated as, hasn't he done wonderful, marvelous things? Osei Fele. Well, here is Ayin Shin Yod Tav. Well, the ayin is pronounced as an A or sometimes even a U or an E or an O. I used to use the letter A. I'm just thinking somebody used the word Karen was looking on the internet and somebody spelled the word or O-W-R. The word light is Aleph Vav Resh. Well, why would they spell it O-W-R? Because if you spell it A-W-R, hour, no, it's or. That must be an O. Phonetically, maybe it's an O, but it's the letter A, which is our aleph. If it was an ayin, it would be the letter O. So that's why a number of years ago, all of a sudden I changed everything and I thought, okay, if I write Yeshua, Yod, He, Vav, Shin, Ayin, I'm going to write the English letters Y-H-U-S, capital S, lower h, because if I write capital S and capital H, it might be Samech He, so I'll write capital A, S, lower h, that's the Shin, and then Ayin with an O. So it's not, well, you read that, Yahusho? What do you mean Yahusho? Not show, it's not pronounced show, it's Shah. But it's an ayin pronounced as an ah, not an another vowel of A, E, O, I, O, or U, or GH, which is the ion, what it'll do. So here's the problem that you have with transliterating, transposing between English and Hebrew. You have the cardinal sequence, you have the ordinal sequence, you have the sound of the phonetics. So I had to make a determination years ago to keep something constant. And I determined, instead of like everybody else, write the word ion, A-Y-I-N, and it's spelled with the letter ion, I'm going to write it O-Y-I-N. Well, it's not pronounced oyen, it's ion, but it starts with the letter O because L-M-N-O-P, Samic ayin resh pei, memnun Samic ayin resh. It's in the same position as our letter O in English. It's an O. It's the omicron in Greek. You look at Lou White's book and he called it the omega. It's not the omega. Yeah, it sounds like an O, but the omega was stuck at the end. So you look at even the back of Fossilized Customs, and Lou White goofed up. I think it's not the omega, it's the I of the omicron. That's what happens when you transliterate between languages. So I'm trying to design a consistency to make it easy. But if you don't know what I'm doing, you're going to be more confused. It's not Yahusho with an oyen, it's Yahusha. But then this is where this guy down in New Zealand was getting all bent out of shape. If you say Yahusha, Sheen Aleph, S-H-A, the word Shah, Sheen Aleph, or Sheen Vav Aleph, Shua, means profane and vile and desecrated, as in, don't take up his name in vain. That word vain is Sheen Aleph and Sheen Vav Aleph. And it's like, oh gosh, he's right. People are going to have that tendency. Okay, I'm going to make it S-H-O. That settles it. So I've bumped into a bunch of these considerations over the years and tried to make adjustments for the sake of clarity. And whether anybody else likes it or agrees or follows suit, well, it's on you. If you think you can do better, go ahead and do better. But that's why. That's the reasoning. Anyway,
Randall's got a question.
Eric, if you continue on with that on page 510, where you got the word Pele, which means wonderful, which is spelled the Pe Lamed Yod, then Pe Lamed Yod Aleph means wonderful, same thing. But if you go down, you got Paleozoic, Paleolithic, and then you go to the next one down is Pleonism, and then you have another one where you jump and it doesn't say paleo, it says play. You know, so if you look at the letters, they keep changing the phonetic sounds and using different letters. So I don't have a problem with you saying paleo, none whatsoever.
The interesting thing about the word paleo is that actually that same word, that soundbite, paleo, like you said, it means Paleolithic. Well, that's Latin. It's also in Greek. It's also in English. It's also in Hebrew. And I would imagine maybe Aramaic and Arabic, but it literally means ancient, modern, ancient, hidden, written on stone, Paleolithic, lithograph. That's where we get the word print something on stone. And literature, then, it comes from that, lithographic. So it's just interesting that word paleo finds its or retains its meaning in all the different source languages. And even the word to play is English phonetic consonants remaining the same, P-L, whether it's an aleph or yod, A-Y. So it's fair to look at those correlations and figure that they're there for a reason and that they do mean something and they can be determined and analyzed. They're built into the language on purpose. Anyway, should I go ahead and proceed then with?
Can we end? Randall's got his hand raised.
Who? I can't see anybody.
That's all right.
I can't see anybody's hand, so thank you for bringing it to my attention. Maybe I'm going to go back on the large grid.
Yeah, Eric, you're talking about the sound. This is something that's puzzled me for quite some time, and you were just talking about the sound that we give the ion. But the one that bothers me, I guess, the most, or I'm confused with the most, is we have the letter aleph, and we pronounce it when we say this letter here is aleph, but then you see it everywhere else. It's the sound e or eh. So why don't we say aleph instead of aleph? When we say, and I've seen a lot of people do this. They put an a instead of e when they spell Elohim, and automatically my brain goes to Elohim. So who decided to say, okay, we're going to call this letter aleph, but we're going to pronounce it like an e?
Where you're wrong is that the aleph has no sound at all. It's silent.
Well, somebody gave it a sound.
That's what happened. Somebody gave it a sound because if you write the word aleph tav, for example, if aleph is silent, how would you say the word spelled aleph tav?
Well, what I've heard is et.
Oh, that has the e. But if you don't give it a sound, how would you pronounce aleph tav?
Tav.
No, that's saying the name of the letter. How would you pronounce the word spelled aleph tav? Just
Et.
2 letters.
At.
No, see, you're giving it a sound. Don't give it a sound. The tav has a sound. You got to say something.
Tuh.
How do you pronounce aleph tav if the aleph has no sound?
Tuh.
Something like that. If I'm saying I'm going to the store, well, that's the English word to, but I didn't say the o. I just said I'm going to the store. Well, the interesting thing is that in Hebrew, if you write the word aleph tav hyphenated, it actually points to the noun that the verb action is imposed upon. I'm going, that's a verb action. Store is the noun, that's the place. So I'm going to the store. Well, in English, well, I'm going to the store. I'm plugging in that word. It's like, no, that's aleph tav. Aleph tav is the word to. It functions and sounds if I don't add the u, the o to the word to. And I'm just showing you how language morphs and moves around like jello through the ages.
I guess
If you go back and look online, probably to the origins of the English language, back in the days of Chaucer, gosh, those guys, English was so weird, you couldn't even understand it. I mean, English was just weird. English that we have now has developed and refined, and we speak rather eloquently. All these little words, all these things, the spelling. I mean, English is so refined, is so modified.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean it's good. That doesn't mean it's accurate. But it is. It is good and it is accurate and it does work. But if you look at the way they spoke in the Middle Ages, gosh, you wouldn't be able to recognize it. Or even look what Shakespeare was doing, man. And yet he was so articulate. But the way they phrase things is totally different. If you look back at one of the original King James Bibles, you wouldn't be able to read it now.
Yeah, the these and that.
Same thing happened. So by default or by necessity, what's the difference between just tav and aleph tav? Well, there is no word with just a tav. So, but if it's aleph tav, it's like, yeah, okay. The aleph is silent, but we're just going to stick on a vowel sound. Eh. It could have been could have been at, but it. Just like we do with the word to. We put a apostrophe and leave out. Did not, didn't. And apostrophe T, we leave out certain things. It's just morphed over the years to give us ease of use. That's why I said the Oxford Dictionary keeps growing bigger and bigger and bigger every year. They take out words and add new words. And there's a whole council of people that's their job. Every year they figure out what words to take away and what words to add to the English language. In fact, there was a movie about a guy who did that. Very interesting movie. I can't remember what the name of the movie was.
Mel Gibson was in that. Mel Gibson and I can't think of it. The Professor, I think.
Yeah, it just about drove the guy insane. Cost his family, but he was responsible for getting the whole Oxford Dictionary together. That was quite a movie. That's kind of what we're doing, actually. Very close. In fact, somebody recommended I watch that because it looks so much like what we're doing. It's like, how do you go back in time, but at the same time retain the present mind, not betraying either? Kind of like that menorah, the past, the present, and here's the present. I mean, the past, the future, and here's the present. How do you find that hypothetical phantom ideal, but taking the ancient mind and the modern mind and saying, this is what the letter means, this is what the word means, and now we have to take Elohim's consciousness and stick it on the brain of the high priest so he can lead us in the right direction and not bring us into some cult where we're going to drink the Kool-Aid and ride the meteor when it flies past. To blend a couple other scenarios.
One more thing, and this, I'm new to this. So, does the paleo, or even, well, maybe the present does, but does the paleo, is time factored into the paleo? Like in our English, we have three tenses, past, present, future. But is time factored into paleo in the same way?
No, apparently Hebrew, just as a structured language, has two tenses, which is a completed action and an incomplete action. And so the complete action is the present tense, and the incomplete action is to say it's either past or future, meaning it's not right now. That's the way I've understood it. Maybe I'm inaccurate. Maybe somebody else can make a better explanation. But that's why when you have the letter tav either at the beginning or the end, there doesn't seem to be a consistent way to translate it. And I've seen the exact same word, tav beginning, tav end, switched around. And some translators will say it's past tense and some will say it's future tense. So you'll read in here in Stone's Tanakh that it will say, I will have done such and such. I will have done such a stuff, or I will do. I've already done it, or I'm going to do it. And the translators don't know. So, but they have to say something. So they'll say something. Oh, well, this is what the professional translator said. Back off, just relax, consider the verb action. And then consider that in Yahweh's mind, as I have planned, so it shall be. As I have purposed, so shall it come about. So when Yahweh gets a plan in his mind, the aleph will tav. Period. That's the message in the aleph tav. So in a sense, it's as good as done. And that concept gets into exactly what this Isaiah 28, or starting with Isaiah 23, is all about. Is our confidence in Yahuwah saying, when he has his mind set, our sanity is trusting it's going to happen. And the mind blower, just, I'm going to jump ahead here for a moment, is when you when you get into this thing of Isaiah 28, 23 to 29. Verse 23 says, hey, look at this. And 29 says, yeah, look at that. And it's what's in the middle. It seems to be talking about injections of vaccinations and people trying to dominate the world, and Yahweh gonna make them pay according to what they do. What? That's present tense. That's right. These verses that look like he's talking about a sower planting seeds and 4 different kinds of stuff, the 5 different kinds of stuff, wheat and barley and black caraway and cumin. How can I say that that's about inoculations and given what for to who deserves it? Because that's what these words are about. And when Yahweh said in the very beginning, listen to what I'm saying according to my voice. His voice is in Hebrew. It's a clue that there's a riddle in the Hebrew hidden under the guise of telling a farming story. Let me just give you, I'm going to cut to the chase here, verse 29 of Isaiah 28, written, Gam zat ma'am Yahweh zavot, yetze ha-palea, there's paleo, etza counsel Hagadil Toshia. Isaiah 28, verse 29, as it says here, is this too has issued from Hashem, master of legions. His counsel is wondrous and his wisdom abundant. Okay. What's he talking about? He's talking about the parable of the farmer. It's issued, I'm just reading Stone's Tanakh, is issued from Hashem, master of legions. His counsel is wondrous and his wisdom is one. What is so wonderful about his counsel and wondrous? All he's saying is, if you're going to plow the field, you stop when it's plowed and you plant the seed. And then when you're harvesting or threshing the seed, you thresh seed in different ways. Okay, so what? You have to pick it up and apply it as a metaphor, as an example. You have to go back and apply it to the chapter we just read, which is chapter 28, which we're not going to get into. But what I'm saying is, if you do get into it, he just said, verse 16, behold, I am laying a stone for a foundation in Zion. Where's Zion? It's a mythical place that doesn't exist. What? It's Jerusalem. No, Jerusalem's Jerusalem. Zion is Zion. Well, what is Zion? Zion is somebody who does what Yahweh commands. Get into it next week. A sturdy stone, a precious cornerstone, a secure foundation. Let the believer not expect it soon. What? What do you mean, let the believer not expect it soon? The rabbinical commentary on verse 16 down here says Hezekiah, or the Messiah, will weed out the wicked, but it will not happen in the immediate future. What? Hezekiah, or the Messiah, the Hezekiah, according to a rabbi named Radak, and it's the Messiah, according to a rabbi named Rashi, will weed out the wicked. Let's go back. I'm laying a stone for a foundation in Zion. Weeding out the wicked? It says nothing about that. Sturdy stone, precious cornerstone, a secure foundation. Where's weeding out the wicked? The parable of the sower is later in the chapter, verse 23. This is verse 16. I shall use judgment as a measuring line and righteousness as a plumb bob. How do you use righteousness as a plumb bob? A plumb bob, like we said, Anoki, where you hold it from El Elyon up here and you let it plummet down. Is that the Messiah, the one who's coming from heaven to earth? Well, then why do the Jewish rabbis have a hard time with Yeshua? If this is what, if he's saying he's the plumb bob, which is also a dalal, that you have to know Hebrew to know that. Hail will sweep away the shelter of deceit. Water will wash away the refuge of falsehood. Oh, he's talking about the scoffing men, the drunkards of Ephraim, who are getting loaded on liquor and vomiting on the tables. And those who skull and bones make a covenant with death. What the heck has that got to do with weeding out the wicked? But it won't happen in the immediate future. It did happen in the immediate future. Right after Isaiah was talking about this, the northern kingdom got taken into captivity. Then 130 years later, the southern kingdom got taken into captivity. Let the believer not expect it soon. Well, so I wrote down verse 16, and I think it says something completely different, which we'll get into next week. But let me address verse 29, the last verse of that chapter, saying, Gamzat. The word gimel mem means heaped up or more. It's like having ice cream on top of your cake. What's more? Another pile, please, another scoop. Zion aleph tav. Remember, Zion hey and Zion aleph tav both mean the word this. So Zion aleph tav is this with an exclamation point. He says, what's more? Heaped up this. Well, you have to know what he's been talking about in the other verses for that to have an effect. But mem, ayin, mem. Mem is a place of or away from. Ayin, mem is the word that means with, but it also means people, meaning kinsmen. Yahweh Zavot. So it means this is away from Yahweh, or it's translated here, this comes from Yahweh. Okay, this is coming from the throne, the hand, the what? The next word after Yahweh's vote is Yod Zadi Aleph Hey. Well, Zadi Aleph means go, get out of here. It's to export, it's to publish. Then the next word is the paleo. Hey, that's the, Pei Lamed Yod Aleph. Well, there's no O. It's Pei Lamed Yod, but the Aleph is silent. So it's Pele. So to say paleo, I'm just saying, hey, I know that word. It's paleo. That's what it is. Hidden wonder. Ayin Zadi Hey is counsel. Hey, Gimel Dalet Yod Lamed is Gadil, the Gadil. Well, Gadil is like Gadol, Gimel Dalet Lamed or Gimel Dalet Vav Lamed, looking up the dictionary, derivative spellings, and it means incredible, fabulous, tassel, fringe, festoon, braided, growth, development, magnified, come of age, dignity. When you finally get to be 21, you can go get drunk legally. Verse 29 in the notes is it would be on page 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the very last one. There's a red line, and I added it because it was on page 5, the rest of it. Sorry. I wanted to keep it. I had a little space, so I stuck it in there. Look at the bottom of page 4. It'll be there. So what's it saying? Is Gadol when we finally come of age, when we finally, now I get it, we finally rise to the place of dignity. Let me back up. More this. If I say from the throne of Yahweh exported, but mem, ayin, mem is the people. Mem is the place. So mem as a prefix can mean away from, or the place at, or the reverse of, but it can mean this has been on reserve, held in Yahweh's care for the people, the Am Yahweh's vote, the people of Yahweh. Oh, that's the remainder, the survivor. That's those that we talked about earlier that have come back from the scattered people of Ephraim. And that's where Yahweh publishes or allows, make it so, number 1, Zadi Aleph Hey, reveal the paleo council. Ayin Zadi Hey, eyes opening. Pei Zadi is mouth opening and exploding. Ayin Zadi, well, that's to lignify or have closed eyes. But it's also open eyes, especially if it's ayin hey. So this is the great opening of understanding of the ayin, the weighing, the measure, I see it. This is the paleo etzah. It's the fabulous, the festooned, braided, magnified, come of age dignity, and then the word tav, vav, shin, yod, hey. Shin Yod Hey, if you look it up in the dictionary, it's a she lamb. It's a little female lamb. But then it'll tell you it's a derivative of Shin Hey, and Shin Hey Hey is a derivative of that, which means delayed, withheld, paused, or retarded. And I found other places where it means held in abeyance. In other words, Yahweh had promised this prestige, this gadil, this most majestic era to his people all along, to Abraham. Joseph knew of it and brought it into Egypt, and Egypt flourished under Joseph's viziership. And then a Pharaoh came who didn't know Joseph and sunk the whole thing and ended up drowning it in the Sea of Reeds because of his attitude. And then it was given to Moshe, and the people wouldn't believe. And then David picked it up and believed, and then Solomon perverted it, and Hezekiah had a glimpse, and Josiah had a glimpse, but then Yeshua brought it back, and it fell into disuse until now. What? The promise of Yahweh's favor, the promise of provision, the promise of the covenant where Yahweh would destroy our enemies, not necessarily wipe them out dead, but make them drink the cup of their own wrath, their own ways back on their own head, and him giving us favor, which is why when we walk in righteousness, our own ways back on our head, the word righteousness, which is doing right, doing good, doing straight, doing balanced scales of justice. Also, the word zadika means victory, deliverance, and salvation. Victory, deliverance. When we walk in righteousness, we'll be measured back on our own heads. So the reason why we keep the Sabbath day is not only because he said so, because it's the proof that we're listening. And if we listen to him, he'll listen to us. And he said, when you start listening to me, then what comes with that is that I make your enemies drink their own poison. According to a man's way, it will be returned to him. And so when you start listening to me, the ways of righteousness, which is also victory, which is doing what he said, which is sitting down on the Shabbat and keeping his moedim and calling on his name, seeking refuge in his identity, all that will be returned on your own head in the appearance of victory, salvation, and deliverance. And your enemies are going to start drinking their own cup of destruction. And they'll see it and they'll experience it, and it will horrify and terrify them. That's what he's saying. Because this has been kept in reserve as a place for Yahweh's people, and it has been delayed. But the word Tav Vav Shin Yod Hey, in the dictionary, it says it means wisdom, orientation, advice, insight, philosophy, metaphysics. Yes, and even pseudoscience of quantum physics. All that stuff. And the word Shin Yod means gift. To be given as a present to Yahweh's Hanani, his sweet little ewe lamb. Though it's been withheld and delayed, held in abeyance for thousands of years. So as we read before in Psalms 139, I believe it was, or I think I made a mistake calling it 139 or 136. Last week, maybe I blended going between the two. Anyway, sorry for the confusion. But the point is, if I choose to believe Yahweh's favor, we'll get his favor. If I choose to believe Yahweh's scorn, get his scorn. If we choose to believe his abuse, we'll get his abuse. If we choose to believe his provision, we'll get his provision. If I choose to believe everything he said and make up a fantasy, well, it's all fantasy and nothing will happen. But if I choose to believe what he said based on the meaning of the 22 letters of the alphabet, then it's not my fantasy, it's what he said. Therefore, it's based on reality. Therefore, it's worth knowing these letters and then trusting, hoping, counting on. And then that's where seek refuge in his name. How do you do that? You invent a reality in your mind where what he said was true, and it's according to his voice because it's his voice. Okay, then wrap your mind around what he said, take it to heart, lamading, teaching and learning, rehearsing, so that mem within you, a blessed noon, out of the depth of the slurry jumps this new creature of hope. Let me just say this. The point of all this was to go back and look, which we'll do next week. We're going to look at line upon line, precept upon precept, but it doesn't really say that. The word line is kuf vav. Well, that's kava, like tikva, which actually, hi, Mark and Debbie, we're right at the very end, and you're just now showing up. But anyway, the word tikva is hope. Hope, like a string under tension. So why is it just called line? And then the word precept is zadivav, but zadivav is a command order, like one who is under the authority of the captain of the ship to do what he said. So if I say line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little, or is he saying as you hope and as you obey? A little bit here, a little bit there. You know, when I say that, a little bit here, a little bit there, let me throw this in. I looked online under this phrase, line upon line, precept upon precept, and there was a guy who was a Mormon elder, had a whole article saying, this is the way Joseph Smith learned, because if he gave it a whole download all at once, it would have been too much. and it would have been confusing and overwhelming, but he gave him a little bit, a little bite, and that's proof this is the way Yahuwah works, Elohim works, where he just gives you a little bit. Like, really? That's right. If you get a little bit at a time, he'll give you the whole reality. Well, there's people who get different realities. Who's to say what reality is true? I can have a vision, I can encounter angels, maybe they're demons, I don't know. I can have thoughts, a line upon line, a little bit here, a little bit there. And according to what this guy was saying, that's the proof that it's from Elohim. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. So what does it mean? A little bit here and a little bit there. What I'm saying is that you can go online or you can listen to other people's books and sermons, and they'll use this phrase, he said, line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little, and that's proof that this is from God, that I've got God's words. You can believe whatever you want to believe. The fact that we're going back and looking at these words and letters, Kufav has to do with his voice that we hope and expect. The subject of our expectation is the target of what did he say? And the word Kadosh Yahweh is not just betrothed to Yahweh or set apart unto Yahweh or like the high priest of Yahweh, but Kadosh, according to him, is the true reality of what he meant, and thus the communication getting through. So the study of the letters is to say, what did he mean? Why did he say it like this? And now I got to adjust my thinking and my hearing, my aleph, zayin, nun, to balance and perceive exactly what he meant. I'm going to take the responsibility to make sure that what I'm hearing is what he said. And fortunately, thankfully, he correlated all the letters to pictures, to words, to the story of Yeshua's journey, travel, and experience here, leaving and coming back, and the Mishkan and the Moedim. It's all wrapped up in the meaning of these letters. A validation, layer upon layer upon layer. Reminds me when I was a kid, you had an encyclopedia, and you open up, and there's the human body, and there was with skin on, and you pulled off the clear acetate, and there's the muscles, and the tendons, and you pulled that off, and there's the organs, and you pulled that off, and there's the skeleton, and it's like you go, the layers of acetate. Those are the various layers, like looking at the different patterns which validate what's in the meaning of these letters. So we're going to talk about this next week, but what I'm saying is that there's a different way to read line upon line, precept upon precept. But the upshot of it is that Yahuwah says, look, I've told you again and again. And if you choose to believe me, then you get, that's verse 29, you get what has been stored up all these years that your previous generations forfeited because they either believed the wrong thing, wouldn't listen, didn't care, said, whatever, so what? That's right, Deuteronomy 30, Leviticus 26, and Deuteronomy 28. If you have a casual disregard, whatever, then I'm going to deal with you with a fury of casual disregard. But if we, Deuteronomy 30, return to him with all our heart and all our soul, then he's going to respond with all his heart and his soul, because he's been waiting for this for thousands of years. And what I was trying to say by giving that quick overview of history is that we could be, I believe we are, and we have the potential, we could blow it, but we have the potential to be the people group, the mind, the heart that he's always been looking for, which is to say, believe these words, believe in he who gave and spoke these words. So we have to know what these words mean. And it is not a reworking, a whitewashing, another rendition of anything that I've ever heard of previously existing, because he's held this hidden until now. So you're not going to get this from any rabbi or any pope or any pastor or preacher or professor. It doesn't exist. You can't go to college and learn this stuff. So for Caleb and Rob to say, hey, where do you get your qualifications? It's like, I don't need qualifications. Look at the letters. They qualify themselves. That's what this is about. How do the letters qualify themselves? Let's learn the letters. And this is being this paleo council, Isaiah 29 or 28, verse 29, even says this is the incredible gift for the people of Yahweh Zavot that he will allow to be published, the hidden, made evident, the paleo etzah, as a dignified dignity magnified when they finally come of age. You might say in our disposition, not just when the period of time has lived out its days, 2,730 years, which is now. What an incredible thing to believe. It's us now that gets this paleo gift. This Toshia of Etzah, how gadil. Anyway, back to you guys. If you want to turn on your mics and add whatever you feel like before we come to an end of this session. So Randall's got a question, sure.
Randall, you can just turn on your camera if you want.
Oh, there I am. Oh, I heard you say just a second, and I had some internet connection problems, and I got dropped a few times, so I missed some of what you were saying. But what I caught was talking about a delay, and it got me to thinking about the verse in the Brit that some of you may know where this is at, when it was talking about the bridegroom being delayed. Do you think that maybe this was the delay that the 2000 blah blah on Ephraim delaying coming until?
That's the parable of the 10 virgins, or the 10 girls, depending on it.
Right. That's the parable.
So there could be different reasons for a delay or different delays, and you're right to pick up a word and compare it. So Rabbi David Foreman has done the same thing in different studies. He took the word, there is a reward for what you've accomplished. It was in Jeremiah 31, Rachel weeping for her children and going, okay, so there's a reward. So what's a reward? Well, that's a shakar. Well, there exists. That's Yod Shin. It's where we get the word is or is in English. Well, wait a minute. Is a reward. That's Yod Shin, Shin, Kaf Resh. That's the name Issachar. Hey, that's where the son of Jacob named Issachar comes from. There is a reward. Yeah, but if you see it written in Hebrew and Yahweh speaking to Rachel, she's dead and laying in the grave. What's she doing up in heaven? And what's her voice doing? Why is she crying in heaven? You know, you read the text and it's like, it's crazy talk. You look at the way it's written in Hebrew and it's a whole different matter. So Rabbi David Foreman was saying, when you see one Hebrew word and it's a phrase or a concept or even a development of concepts throughout a few verses, and it's an exact parallel or an exact model of another concept, it's because it's on purpose and it's tied, it's connected. Go back and look there and you'll see some insights. That's the nice thing about Foreman's Aleph Beta studies. So for you to say, hey, held, delayed, why the word achar, as in Elohim Achrim, Aleph Het Resh, that means delayed, coming later. But this is Shin Hey Hey, delayed, withheld, paused, postponed. I think there's another word too that means that, but this is Shin Yod Hey, and somebody can say it's not Shin Hey Hey, it's Shin Yod Hey. But look in the dictionary, Shin Yod Hey is a She Lam, which is a Shin Hey, or you could look at Shin Vav Hey, which is a derivative of Shin Hey Hey. And what I'm saying is, this is how the study is conducted. It's looking at the root, the derivative spellings, pulling things in, looking at different passages, hence the study. It's not just, here's a serving, eat your hamburger and slam it down and go on your way. It's a study of savoring bite by bite, ingredient by ingredient, spice by spice, morsel by morsel, here a little, there a little. It's all in the details. And there's a word that means meticulous, pedantic, detailed, dalet kuf. And that word dalet kuf is used a few times here in Isaiah 28 or 23 to 28. Just so you know, once you realize what a word means and you see it used repeatedly, he's talking about the same subject. There's a word that's spelled Yod Vav Dalet Kuf, not in the dictionary. There's a word that's yod vav dalet shin. Can't find that either. Aleph dalet vav shin. Oh, you can find aleph dalet yod shin. But so what I'm saying is you have to know how the language works so you can go through the dictionary and figure out how to make sense of these words, because some of the words you just can't find. Like there's this word in Isaiah 28 spelled kuf zadi het. Not there, not in the dictionary. Maybe it's in some other dictionary, not in this one, but kuf zadi means to the side or finish, remove, cut off, end destruction. And zadi het means clear, glowing, bright, and pure. So I can add kuf zadi to zadi het and say that must mean a decisive end. It's like, okay, it's kind of like the handwriting on the wall. So now I'm taking this concept of a decisive end based on the fact that I can't find a 3-letter word in the dictionary or Klein's dictionary. And I'm taking these 2 letters, those 2 letters, put them together and saying, hey, that reminds me of a story of Belshazzar having a banquet. And he says, hey, let's bring in those goblets from my grandpa ripped off the temple in Jerusalem. And all of a sudden the handwriting on the wall, mini mini tiklu farsin, that's it, decisive end. Really? Really? I pushed it too far? Oh, come on. We were having a party. We had the dancing girls. We had a great feast. Everything was going fine. Would the hand have showed up if he hadn't asked for those goblets? Well, the king of Persia was already on his way. They deflected the Euphrates River and came in under the gates. Would that have gone south? Would that siege have failed if he hadn't asked for the goblets? We don't know. But what I'm saying is, at what point does somebody just push him too far? And he said, that's it, decisive end. Whoa, wait a minute, back up. No, there's no backing up. Gosh. Okay, so these clowns that are injecting people, when's the last straw? And I say that because some of the words used in this place are exactly what those things mean. Literally, inject, and it's kind of like he's saying, gosh, here, verse 25, go back and look at that. And I'm saying, I'm trying to bring your attention, Isaiah 28, verses 23 to 29, so you can do some homework, and whoever's watching this and wants to look at it, go back and look, see what you come up with. Is he talking about a decisive end? In fact, the word is 2 words later, verse 25, Isaiah 28. It's kuf zadi het, okay, clear, decisive end. And then vav, kaf mem menun means to quantify, hidden, lay in wait like a snare, like a pirate in Grand Cayman Islands, same word. And then yod, zayin, resh, kuf. Well, in the dictionary, it says zayin, resh, kuf means to throw or sprinkle or toss, but it's also a serum for injection. What? And then vav shin mem, which means they're existing, but it's also branding cattle stamped or marked. You're going to mark somebody with giving them an injection of a vaccine. And then the word het tet hey, which means wheat. But het tet vav tet means pockmarked or disinfection. Het tet vav hey. So if this is het tet hey, well, it just means wheat. But het tet vav he means disinfection. Het tet aleph means cause to sin or bring into guilt. Somebody's being brought into guilt for giving a branding of a serum of injection. Does that have to do anything with current affairs? Well, let that be your opinion. Look at the rest of these verses, which is why I'm saying, boy, we'll do this next week, but this is a very interesting consideration. And I'm doing all this to play into the paleo question of how do you get paleo if it ends in a hey instead of a vav? I'm just trying to show you how the processing works. Anyway,
earlier on you mentioned about the Song of Solomon, and it's really the Song of Songs, but you mentioned that the banqueting table or the banqueting house, well, it doesn't say banqueting house, it says the house of wine. But you mentioned that the word Torah was in there somewhere. I thought you said
Rashi's interpretation calls it. If I looked at Stone's Tanakh, it's a metaphorical poetry based on the words, but he's not going to call it a house of wine. He's going to call it I don't even know if he calls it a house. I'd have to look it up. But a Torah delights. Because what he's saying is once you start drinking of this analysis of the Hebrew in the Torah, it's like a banquet of wine. So what I'm saying is that, especially, you're right, Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs, but it's called in the King James Song of Solomon. What I'm saying is that that's a perfect example of what the translators do. They'll sanitize it for their
called the Song of Solomon. It's called a Song of Solomon, but it has little to do with Solomon. Hardly anything.
Perhaps he wrote it, but maybe they're not even sure about that, of what he's really even talking about.
Because that's more about Messiah and his bride than it is. It has hardly anything to do at all with the Solomon. It's all about Messiah and his bride.
Well,
And
so for Rashi to say, what's that?
And how his bride just keeps falling asleep, just like Israel fell asleep.
Well, but for Rashi to say, no, this isn't about the Messiah and his bride. This is about Israel being taught the Torah and not caring. So it's kind of the same metaphorical story.
It is.
So, hey, I just wanted to thank everybody for joining us, and we have what we call the after show. So we're going to stop recording. We're going to pray. We're going to stop recording. But if you haven't had a chance to check out the new Erictology site, that's what's behind me. It's operating so much better. I think James Relf went in and did some fixing to it, but
just so you know, I have to talk to James. This morning I tried to punch up that site and hit on the Leviticus of the Torah, and it wouldn't come up. It says page not found. So, hey, Debbie and Mark.
Hey, I'm looking for Erictology font on that site right now.
It's probably not there. I'd have to send that to you, which I could do. And just so you know, you guys just showed up, and though you weren't here, except for this end of the second hour, end of 2 or 3 hours now, based on something you said, I went on for an hour's discussion in the beginning.
Sorry.
So, 2 hours discussion. So thank you for your comment. It provoked an explanation, which I think is highly valuable, worthwhile, significant for us all to consider regarding this study.
Right.
So just so you know, it was saying something that Kurt read saying, hey, this seems like it's a replacement theology consideration. And it's like, okay, let me explain this whole thing. And that's what the whole beginning was all about. So you'll have to go back and listen. Hopefully I officially debunked that concept, but thank you for bringing it up and suggesting that it might be that. Because
we left your name out of it, though.
What it was. Huh?
Okay.
We left your name out to protect the innocent.
Yeah, it wasn't until you showed up, but I'm just trying to acknowledge.
But now that you're here, we're recording it, so I'll have to edit this out.
You don't have to. It's okay. I'm going to watch this later.
Yeah, we're going to pray, though, if you don't mind, so then we can shut off the recording. Yehovah, thank you again for gathering your people. Father, thank you for waking me up and calling me your matured son to Israel. Father, this is not an easy subject to dive into studying your word letter by letter in a language that's not our own. But you know what? You said that we'd come to this, and here we are. And here we are. And I just thank you so much for my brothers and sisters who love your word and love digging into it every single week. And we just look at each other from across the world and say, hey, I'm here, you're here. Let's dig in. And I thank you for that. Father, this word, bless everybody, protect everybody, keep us safe. In whose name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Hallelujah.
Have a great week, guys. So hopefully we'll get a chance to see you next week. Maybe Thursday night. Have a great week.
All right, thank you. I'll talk to you later. Okay, I'm going to stop recording. This is the after show.